Renowned for its stunning beaches, turquoise water and unique granite rock formations, the Seychelles is truly one of the most stunning places in the world. In this video, I provide an overview of our 2-week itinerary in the Seychelles, visiting the 3 main islands of Mahé, Praslin and Digue. I also provide some helpful tips and things we learned on our visit to help you get the most out of your trip. So we arrived on the island of Mahé at the very small airport and picked up our hire car from the terminal. And yeah, I would definitely recommend hiring a car on the island of Mahé just to get the most out of your visit there. And just to mention, we visited the islands in early April, which is the transition period between the monsoon season and the southeast trade wind season, which generally means a blend of warm weather, calm wind and fewer rainy days. The water is also calmer at this time of the year, which is great for snorkeling and something we really wanted to do. I think it's really important to do your research on what time of year you want to go, and it shouldn't be overlooked. One important consideration for me was that seaweed washing up on the shore can be a problem at certain times in the year, and as a photographer, seaweed on a sandy beach doesn't look very photogenic, so I found that April was a pretty good month to avoid much of the seaweed. So back to the itinerary, and after we picked up the car, we then went to our accommodation, which was located to the south of the island, with one night costing us €80. The south of Mahé was a really nice place to stay. There was lots of beaches nearby and it generally feels much more relaxed and not as touristy as the north side. We actually only spent one night here before then going on to the next island, but in that time we visited the beaches of Anse Baie Lazare and Anse Royal, which were both pretty incredible. On our second day, we boarded the ferry at around lunchtime to make our way to the island of Praslin, and as a heads up, you'll need to book ferries in advance, particularly during peak season. It takes about an hour to get from Mahé to Praslin and cost us €68 per person one way. I read quite a lot online about seasickness with these crossings, but fortunately on our visit the water was nice and calm. We did take some anti-sickness tablets just in case, and when I booked the tickets I opted for the upper outside deck, and I find the fresh air helps. When we arrived at the ferry terminal, we picked up our hire car, which was really easy to do, and it cost us €160 for 4 days. So we stayed on the island of Praslin for 4 days, which I think is the perfect amount of time on this island. Our accommodation was self-catered and cost us €328 for 4 nights. The standout beaches on the island were Anse Lazio and Anse Georgette. To visit Anse Georgette, you will have to book ahead as it involves walking through the private property of the hotel in order to reach the beach. The management at our accommodation were able to arrange this for us. The real benefit of hiring a car on the island of Praslin is that you can explore some lesser known beaches, particularly along the south coast where there are numerous beautiful beaches. On one of the days we did a full day boat tour, which includes a visit to Curious Island to see the giant tortoises, a lunchtime barbecue and a visit to some great snorkeling locations. This day was a highlight of the trip and definitely worth it. It's worth mentioning that we brought our own snorkeling gear to the Seychelles, which makes things a little bit easier when you do these day trips. The total cost of the day trip was €90 per person. Overall, we loved our time on the island of Praslin, and we were equally excited for the next leg of our trip, which would be going to the island of Digue. We got a lunchtime ferry from Praslin to Digue, which only took 20 minutes or so and cost us €16 per person one way. We made our way to our accommodation, which was about a 15-minute walk from the terminal. Again, we opted for a self-catered setup, just to give us the flexibility during our stay. We'd stay on the island of Digue for 5 nights, which turned out to be a good amount of time for the island. The total cost of the accommodation was €500 for 5 nights. It seems like a lot of people either skip Digue altogether or just visit on a day trip. But for us, actually staying on the island was such a great experience and allowed us to fully relax and unwind. You could definitely sense the island getting busy during the day as the day visitors arrived by ferry, But surprisingly, outside of those ferry times, it actually felt quite quiet, so yeah, definitely worth staying overnight to get the best experience. The unique thing about this island is that the main way to get around is by bicycle, which was such a brilliant way to get around, and it made it so easy to get from beach to beach. We arranged bicycle hire through our accommodation, and it cost us about €10 per bike per day. One tip here is to pack a head torch, as it will make it much easier and safer when you cycle at night. I think the beaches of Digue were the most beautiful of all the islands that we visited, with the highlight being Source d'Argent, which is often voted as the most beautiful beach in the world, and we can certainly testify to this. It was spectacular. There is a small entrance fee of about €10 per day for easier access to the beach. The best tip I have when going to Source d'Argent is to go early in the day, as you'll have the beach all to yourself. There are loads of other great beaches on Digue, however. Our favourites were Grand Anse and Anse Palat. Anse Palat is actually quite a small beach, so I definitely recommend going there earlier in the day before it gets too busy. In terms of activities, we went on a half-day kayak tour at Source d'Argent, which was really good fun. We went to a secluded beach and learned the correct way to open a coconut. You also get an amazing perspective of the incredible granite rocks on the beach. Overall, we had such an amazing time on the island and was definitely the highlight of the trip. We then got the ferry back to Mahé, which took about an hour and a half and cost us €80 per person for a one-way ticket. And when we got to the ferry terminal, we picked up the hire car for the remaining few days of our trip, costing us €135 for the 3 days. For 2 nights, we stayed at a self-catered accommodation on the south of the island, which cost us €140 in total. But for 1 night, we splashed out a bit and stayed at the Hilton hotel located to the north. Before the trip, we spent quite a bit of time researching some nice hotels, and I think it was mainly the spectacular infinity pool here which sealed the deal for us. And I've got to say, this was probably the nicest hotel we've ever stayed in, and we had such a brilliant day. At €500 for 1 night, it was expensive, but we saved a little bit of money in other areas of the trip, like accommodation, eating out and activities, so we sort of saved a little bit in other areas so we could do this. On our final day, we spent some time exploring some beaches that we hadn't yet visited, including Anse Ontadons and Anse Taklamakan. And that would be the end of what was a brilliant trip. And just reflecting on the itinerary, I feel like we had a pretty good balance. I feel like we had enough time on each island that we did everything that we wanted to do, but not too much time that we got bored. Digue was definitely our favourite island. It was just so beautiful, so relaxing, and so easy to get around. Praslin was certainly quieter than we expected, and because it is a larger island, I feel like there is a little bit more to do there. And we sort of had mixed feelings about Mahé, to be honest. The north of the island just seems a bit crowded and packed with resorts, which, if that's what you're looking for, then it's a great option. But for us, we preferred the south of Mahé, which is much quieter and more relaxed. But all in all, we found the people of the Seychelles so friendly and welcoming, which really added to the overall experience. I hope you found this video useful, and if you do have any questions, please feel free to post them in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully see you in the next one.